Good morning, co-op students. My name is Katie Birch. I'm the co-op teacher. We are diving into lesson, I said topic 7, but we're actually on topic 8 today, so I'm just going to fix that. Not sure where my brain was this morning, pre-coffee maybe. So today we are working on future trends in employment, and you're going to understand why it's even important to follow trends in employment. Especially as you're starting, some of you are starting your careers, some of you are halfway through and you're sort of looking at what might interest you. So it is really important to follow the trends and where employment is going, because you should be looking for jobs where you're actually going to get employed. All right, so again, I put topic 7. I'm going to fix that. Okay, so today we're looking at employment trends, things like demographics, the labor market. If you don't know what those mean, don't worry, we're going to cover that today. We're going to understand the trends, look at the things to watch, the trends to watch, and how to prepare for jobs in the future. And in some cases, we don't even know what jobs are going to be available in the future. Today's lesson has a couple of assignments at the end, so I'm not really sure how long it's going to take us to get through the content for this class, but once we get through, I'm going to walk you through how to do the assignments as well. So like I mentioned in every single class, communication is key. My contact information is listed on the slides right here. So please do not hesitate to reach out to me if you need help with any assignment or you're having trouble getting into Google Classroom or anything like that. My email is kburch@nnec.on.ca. You can also reach me on my cell, 807-738-3915. Best to text me, and if you really need help, just give me a call, and if I'm available, I will answer. So all of our coursework is hosted in Google Classroom. So if you haven't already logged into your Google Classroom, you need to get going. www.classroom.google.com, and you log in with your first name, your last name, the month of your birth, day of your birth, at nnecschools.org. Okay, so you can see a little Bitmoji of me here gazing into a crystal ball, because really that's how we predict employment trends. It's all based on information, but whether we're correct or incorrect, that's just for whoever to decide. So we use lots of things, trends and demographics, to help us make predictions, but essentially that's all they are, is predictions. So at your placement, you're going to be able to see what jobs people do every day, and the jobs that exist at co-op today might even look different in 10 years, 5 years, 20 years in the future. While you've been going to school and to your placement, things have continued to change and develop. So whatever you do, no matter what path you choose to stay on, whether it's your chosen path or you move to another career, it's important to understand what might happen in the future. And that's where we're talking about forecasting. So the business of forecasting trends isn't a science. It's making good inferences. And inferences just means making a good guess based on what's already happened, what will happen, and things like that, okay? So forecasters, people who are predicting what's happening in the workplace, they predict things like population demographics. How old is the population? What do people need? What's their ability to spend money? And this is a huge factor right now when we're in this COVID situation. I'm sure there's lots of people looking at population demographics. What do people need? And I'm sure the jobs, we're going to talk a little later about how jobs even during the last 2 years have changed because of the pandemic we've been dealing with. So also, forecasters, people are making predictions about what types of jobs are going to be available. They look for changes in spending, how people are spending their money. They look at changes in where goods and services are made, where they're sold, who they're distributed to. They also look for shifts in which workers are due to retire and will need to be replaced. Like something to consider is like the baby boomers after the Second World War. People all started having tons of children. And now all those people that were born after the Second World War are coming close to retirement. So things to consider are jobs in retirement homes, building retirement homes, Who's retiring? How can we replace those people that are leaving the workforce? And also something really interesting to me particularly is the new technology discoveries that change how things are done. For example, us connecting through Zoom and chatting on the radio. Like, those are two different types of technology. 30 years ago, us sending classes through the radio would have been like a new technology. Really interesting to see how those discoveries change the jobs and the way we work. So when they put a picture together, they can predict what the labor market will look like and how you can fit into it. And it is really important to sort of understand that. We're just going to learn a little bit about what is the labor market. I'm going to play a video here for you.
You can consider work in so many different ways. As a chore, a passion, a challenge, a headache, a money earner, or a pastime, etc. Generally speaking, economists view work as a market. In 3 minutes, you'll know everything about the labor market, or just about. Imagine a tiny country that has 10 companies and 100 inhabitants of working age. Out of these 100, 56 are part of the labor force. In other words, they have a job or are seeking one. Together, our 10 companies and 56-strong labor force therefore constitute a market where you can buy or sell labor. Like any proper market, the labor market is based on supply, that's to say the workers, and demand, in other words, the companies. Since skilled workers are more productive than unskilled ones, companies are prepared to pay them more. But the labor market's extremely segmented. A shoe factory is hardly likely to take on auto engineers, no matter how skilled they may be. Just like a car plant would never hire an astronaut. And then the price of labor also depends on circumstances. In a situation of full employment, there is a shortage of available workers, so wages rise. Conversely, in periods of high unemployment, there is an abundant supply of labor, so wages fall. But let's get back to our mini-country, where a large part of the labor force works in arponium mines. Miners were on good wages until the day when synthetic arponium was invented. All of a sudden, output at the mines fell sharply. Unemployment soared, and 5 people became unemployed, or almost 9% of the labor force. Our minuscule jobs market is swamped by these 5 miners seeking work, but whose skills are now obsolete. So they accept jobs with very low wages and become the working poor, i.e. people who have a job and yet struggle to make ends meet. Faced with this unexpected situation, the government introduces a minimum wage. The lowest salaries rise significantly, which helps the poorest to escape the poverty trap. The problem is that this sudden rise in labor costs threatens the competitiveness of businesses. If they want to avoid price rises, they'll have to make cost savings. For instance, by replacing men with machines, or relocating production to places where labor is cheaper. The minimum wage improves life for some, but risks putting others out of work. What's the best solution? Now let's imagine there are 3 minuscule countries facing the same problem rather than just one. What should be done? In country number 1, the minimum wage is scrapped and the market is left to set labor costs on its own. The wages of the least skilled workers drop significantly. This is the cheapest solution for the community, but it means accepting a 2-tier society where the poor struggle to access health and education, etc. To understand what's going on in country number 2, it must be kept in mind that a salary includes social security contributions that help fund unemployment insurance, as well as the health system and pensions. In country number 2, the government keeps the minimum wage, but does away with social security contributions on low wages. Thanks to this tax break, the cost of unskilled labor falls for companies without any decline in the purchasing power of employees. In short, everyone's happy. The problem with solution number 2 is its cost. Any contributions not paid by companies have to be covered by the state and, ultimately, by taxpayers. In country number 3, the government decides to increase the productivity of unskilled workers through the funding of training schemes. This is expensive for employees, companies, and the state. But it allows workers and companies to adapt to the technical developments in their profession. So there you are. Time for a guessing game. Which solution should be chosen? 1, 2, or 3? In the real world, these 3 solutions coexist and have respectively been adopted by the United States, France, and Denmark. Which is the best one? For economists, the jury's still out. It's particularly hard to assess the long-term effects of public policies. What figures should we take into account? The unemployment rate? Long-term unemployment? Productivity? And then, looking beyond the figures, these different solutions result from different national histories, economic models, and political decisions. Since it plays a particularly important role for society and individuals, the labor market is not uniform in nature. It varies considerably from one country to the next. Ultimately, it's a kind of market, right, but it's also a lot of other things besides.
So I found that super interesting because I want you to think about which one do you agree with? Let's go back to those 3 models. Which of those 3 models would you think would be the preferred economy or labor market? Like it said in the video, it's all dependent on the country, and it is dependent on politics, and it's dependent on need and goods and services production and so many other factors. All right, let's explore the terminology around the labor market. So trend is basically the general direction which something goes up or down or moves over time. Okay, demographics is the characteristics of the population, like people's lifestyles, their habits, their spending, their age, their social classes, employment and things like that. And the labor market are all the people who are available to work, and it's important because it helps us decide which job opportunities would be available at certain times. So I thought this was really interesting, this cartoon here. This little boy going up to his dad, I think, in return for an increase in my allowance, I can offer you free, unlimited in-home computer tech support. Something I'm sure we all feel that our kids are helping us with these days. And something that was highlighted in our school book, in our class textbook, is the jobs and occupations that will continue to need workers in Ontario. And I want you to think about whether you agree or disagree with this, especially in the last 2 years when we've been dealing with the pandemic. Okay, most of these professions do need workers, and there will be jobs in these areas, but whether or not people are moving into those areas because of the risk involved and how COVID has changed things is really interesting to me. So like things like professional and technical services, healthcare and social services are still needed, warehousing, management, hotel and food services, the skilled trades, retail sales, transportation, administrative support and services, and sales and service. So interestingly, if you think about the jobs with regards to COVID, I want you to think, you know, like, are people likely to go into the hotel and food service industry now knowing that you, in the last 2 years, you basically were sent home and were on a social assistance for the last 2 years? I know that a lot of restaurants and hotels are really struggling to find people to work because it is a lower paid job and it's risk. It's the same with healthcare and social services. There's a tremendous amount of trauma that has been around those jobs. Other things like retail, warehousing, those have all been in the news around whether or not those places are safe to be. The way that we run business now with the thought of social distancing is completely different to what happened 2 years ago. So all it takes is one major event to change the entire trajectory of what is going to happen with jobs and occupations. So think about these jobs here. Do you agree or disagree? Are all of these jobs going to be available in the next couple of years? How are they going to change? How are they going to stay the same? Just think about that. Okay, so I do have a little video to show you about how COVID has impacted the workplace, because it is sort of forefront in our minds, and I wanted you to think about, how jobs change, even with major events, like it could even be a hurricane or storms. If you think about how many, like 2 years ago, there were pilots, all were employed, and you couldn't find enough pilots to fly the small airplanes in this area. And now all the pilots in Air Canada, WestJet, the big airlines have been laid off because people just aren't, for almost 2 years, they weren't allowed to travel. So interesting how, jobs start off as being in demand, and then suddenly if a catastrophe happens and lots of people are laid off, I wonder how many people are going to school to become pilots now. So let's watch.
Our research suggests that COVID-19 is going to have a large and lasting impact on work and the workforce. And that's because many of the changes in consumer and business behavior that we started during the pandemic are going to persist. Those include things like hybrid work-from-home models, the shift to e-commerce and digital channels, and an acceleration in the adoption of AI and automation for some use cases. COVID-19 made all these shifts because we were trying to limit physical proximity and limit interactions between people. But actually, what consumers and businesses have found is that there's a lot of convenience in many of the new ways of working. And so we think that there will be a lot more people who will need to switch occupations, but the disruptions are really going to be concentrated in those work arenas where people work physically close together or interact with a lot of different people. We hope our report is a call to action for both business leaders and policymakers, because with the choices we make today, we can build a brighter future of work. We think remote work is here to stay, at least for some people. Our research looked at which activities can be done remotely, and we find that for the majority of workers in the economy, they have no opportunity to work from home, and that's because their jobs require use of specialized equipment or interacting with people. But for those of us in office-based jobs, it is possible for us to do a lot of what we do on a computer, and that could be done anywhere. We think that after the pandemic, when economies reopen, many companies are going to shift to a hybrid model where people go to the office a few days a week and do some activities together, and then they spend a few other days a week working from home remotely. And this is likely to stick because there are many workers who enjoy the convenience of not having a commute and being closer to home. And for companies, they're finding that employees are as engaged. There's some evidence that employees are working actually longer because they're not commuting, and it could be a cost saving in the long run.
Interesting, how one event can cause so many changes in the workplace. Okay, so understanding the trends that shape the future of work.
There is something going on in the world of work today. Some kind of a...
So things to watch. When the concept of trend watching has become popular through social media and web search engines, it's really important for students and you as a job seeker to consider the following things. Today's students are preparing for jobs that don't exist yet because those technologies haven't been invented. Today's learner will on average have 10 jobs and 3 careers over a lifetime. It used to be, 20 years ago that you would take a job and you would stay in that same job for 25 years. That is not the case anymore. 10 jobs and 3 careers over your lifetime, minimum, okay? 3 in 4 workers between the ages of 16 to 19 have been with their current employer for under a year. 2 in 4 workers between 20 and 24 have been with their current employer for under a year. And newspaper circulation declined by 7 million over the last 25 years. So people are really doing a lot of their news reading online, and it's increased by 30 million over the last 5 years. Google, just to Google, Google.com, handles 1 billion search queries per day, and I'm sure that number has gone up. So things like Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, a lot of our current events and news are all happening through social media as well. It's not even just Google anymore. It's through the social media platforms. And things to consider around social media is really the information that's being presented. Is it accurate? So being a good digital citizen is a really, really super important skill in the workplace now, because so much information comes at us, and knowing how to sift and filter through that information is really important. So let's take a look at the 5 trends that don't relate to COVID, because we know COVID has changed that a little bit, that shape the future of work.
There is something going on in the world of work today. Some kind of a evolution that's forcing organizations to think differently about what it means to be an employee or a manager, and even what it means to actually work. There are 5 trends that are causing this evolution to happen. 5 trends that are forcing organizations to challenge everything they know about work. These 5 trends are globalization, mobility, millennials and changing demographics, new behaviors, and technology. Globalization is
I think we can add pandemic to that list too.
causing the world to become like one giant city. The language that you speak, the culture that you subscribe to, the currency that you transact.
So that one large city, the whole world being a one large city, that term is called globalization.
And where you are physically located are all starting to matter much less. This means that organizations can tap into talent anywhere in the world. Mobility is allowing us to stay connected to people and information anytime, anywhere, and on any device. This means that work is no longer a place you go to, it's something that you carry with you in your pocket wherever you are.
Think about that. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? So people not always are going to work. It's work is with you at all times. And how do you manage that as an employee? That's a trick.
Millennials are expected to comprise 50% of the workforce by 2020 and 75% of the workforce by 2025. Millennials are digital natives that expect and want to work in ways that reflect the year we live in. Most people live in 2015, but work at companies that operate like they are in 1975. Although millennials are driving enormous organizational change, it's important to remember that the future employee is anyone that is changing their behavior and mindset to adapt to the changing workforce. This means it doesn't matter if that person is 22 or 62. New behaviors are rapidly entering our organizations. For example, we are all comfortable living a more public life. We share our thoughts in blogs, post reviews on Yelp, have our entire professional history on LinkedIn, share pictures on Instagram, rant on Twitter, and engage in open conversations on Facebook. In fact, virtually every aspect of business behavior has changed, including the way we share, communicate, collaborate, teach, learn, find information, access technology, and create content. This is forcing organizations to fundamentally rethink and reimagine the way we work. Technology such as big data, wearable devices, collaboration platforms, the Internet of Things, and cloud computing are enabling us to work in new ways while keeping us more engaged and productive. In the future of work, technology is the central nervous system of the organization that enables everything else to function. Together, these 5 trends, combined with an unprecedented war for talent, is forcing organizations to shift their mentality from creating a place where they assume employees need to work there to creating an environment where employees want to work there. When we think about the future of work, the organizations that can most effectively make this shift from need to want are the ones who will be able to attract and retain top talent. This means that if your organization doesn't think about and plan for the future of work, then your organization will have no future.
Interesting, right? Technology definitely definitely plays a major factor in the workplace. And like it said, preparing for jobs doesn't mean that you need to be 20 years old, but having an open mind and being willing to learn for the rest of your life is what will get you success in the workplace. This is a super old statement, but more video was uploaded to YouTube in the last 2 months than if ABC, NBC, and CBC had been airing new content since 1948. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. So isn't that crazy how quickly content and information is uploaded to the internet? Okay, so how do we prepare for jobs of the future when we don't even know what they are? So one thing that I would say is the most important is keep learning for the rest of your life. And that's good for your brain, let alone for opening doors in the workplace. Keeping your brain active is just healthy. So be prepared to upgrade your skills, whether it's formal education or training programs, in school, on the job. It doesn't mean you have to get as much post-secondary schooling as possible. It means that once you're working, learning doesn't stop. So give yourself opportunities to learn and keep your brain active. Develop technical skills. So the ability to use tools and understand technical applications, it will be critically important in your future. This means understanding and applying mathematical concepts. Yep, I said math. So make sure you have a strong foundation. So when you're doing those math courses, know that those skills are going to be important in any job in the future. Try to start thinking of your electronic devices as tools and not toys. The more you can efficiently adapt the technology and software, the easier it will be for you to adjust to the working world. Next one, which I tell you at the beginning of every class, learn to really communicate. Can you express yourself with words, with your voice, with pictures? So your ability to share ideas clearly and convincingly will be a tremendous asset in the workplace. As barriers are broken down by the economy, by high-speed communication, we talked about it, it's called globalization, where we're one big economy versus several separate economies. Employees will have to communicate with customers who have different languages, different beliefs. So understanding how to communicate appropriately across various cultures and other barriers is really important. Next one, flexibility. In your future job, you will likely need to be flexible on how you complete your tasks. The time of day you're working, your workspace, that is very specific right now in the times that we're in, where everybody has a different workspace. It's not the same as what it used to be, and the amount of time your contract will last. You need to be prepared for the realities of the workplace. You'll probably find a job that fits your routine and lifestyle, and lots of companies, especially now during COVID, have introduced something called flex time. And this just means that you can choose your hours and work within a range of hours. Or you can share a job with somebody where you share the responsibilities of one job with multiple people. So that's really interesting. So being flexible and not stuck in your ways is a really important skill in preparing for jobs of the future. The next one is networking. Yeah, for all those people who are against having social media, it's time to step up. It doesn't mean that you need to fall into the black hole of social media and spend all that time wasting watching videos, but it's definitely important to demonstrate your work ethic and to create networks. Networking, like creating Facebook, Twitter. So just make sure that you are growing your personal and professional networks, whether that's online, in person. Something I always like to think about is make sure you show kindness in all things. Even if you have a conflict with another employee or a manager, just make sure you act professionally, because you never know when that person is going to come across your path again. So when you maintain that level of professionalism, you're not burning bridges. And you don't want to burn bridges because you never know how it's going to impact you in the future. Last thing, follow the news. Okay, there's a world out there beyond just gossip and sporting events. Reading the news on a regular basis will give you an insight into what's happening in the world around you. When you understand trends and the future, you can shape your studies and your jobs to suit that, and also becoming a really good digital citizen. And all that means is knowing how to filter that information clearly and accurately. So don't believe everything you read. Make sure you do your research. Check multiple sources for information. That's all part of being prepared for jobs in the future. Okay, what time do we have? It's 9:30. We're going to watch one more video. There is a website in Canada. It's called Future Skills Center. And what I put a link right in my video. And what it does is it gives you some information on the types of things that trends and things that are happening in the Canadian workforce that you should be aware of as you're just entering into the workforce, or maybe you're taking this co-op so you can finally graduate from grade 12 and get that pay rise you've been waiting for. So this is a really good website to reach out to, and if you can't find it, just look up Future Skills Center and you'll be able to access lots of information in there around the market, and how the pandemic has affected Indigenous workers, just some really neat information on this website as well. All right, let's see what this guy says. How emerging technologies are impacting the workplace.
The rise of technology, automating many jobs, globalization. It seems like we're in a period of very rapid and dynamic change, and we're kind of rethinking the whole nature of work. And we need to deal with the massive transitions that are happening in the world of work if we're going to have a healthy society over the coming decades.
So how we used to farm was a lot of manual labor, and the equipment was getting old, and we're dealing with breakdowns. So we were able to build this facility. It's a big technology advancement compared to how we used to farm, and now we're able to do less time shoring and do other work instead, so we're more efficient, and it's just a more humane way to harvest milk.
SenseQuick is making cities safer and smarter by combining sensors, AI, and data analysis to perform structural health monitoring and determine the integrity and natural hazard vulnerability of its structures.
De plus en plus, chaque milieu de travail va avoir besoin des nouvelles technologies qui émergent aujourd'hui et demain. Et avoir des connaissances dans ces nouvelles technologies va être crucial dans chaque domaine.
Skill development is vital right now. What skills are we embedding inside of our youth today in order to service these applications, service these robots? Where are we giving that experiential learning?
Hopefully there's growth in the dairy industry, and if we were to stay in our old facilities, we wouldn't be able to grow. It'd be a lot of labor, milking fewer cows, and I'd be a last generation farmer.
I think that Canada has some unique opportunities to be successful because of its place in the world, because of its skilled workforce, the quality of its education system.
This opportunity with Future Skills Council and the Center gives us the time and space to collectively think about how do we make the best use of our resources so that we don't find ourselves behind.
Awesome. So use that website to find information on future skills that are needed. All right, we're going to jump into Google Classroom now, and we're going to get going on our assignments. We have 3 assignments actually today. We're looking at labor trends terminology, just so you have a good understanding of that. We're looking at trends that could affect you, and then also labor trends case studies and how that impacts the workplace. So you're going to go over to your Google Classroom, and I'm going to open it up as a student. And you'll see that I have posted some new assignments. Oops. Just trying to remember my passwords here. Okay, so you'll see that they're due on Sunday this week. We're going to go to classwork. Don't forget, all of our lessons are recorded, so if you've missed a lesson, you can access them all in here. So we're going to go all the way down to topic 8, and we're going to do trends that could affect me. Oh, no, let's go to the terminology. I'll move it around. So what you're going to do is open up that assignment, and all you have to do is figure out the definition. The term is listed here, transferable skills, and then put the letter where the definition meets. So transferable skills are skills you can take from one situation or job to another. Flex time. Whoops. What does flex time mean? Okay, figure it out. Okay, what is the information age? Which one fits information age? What fits network? So you're just going to put the correct letter here on the left-hand side. So I suggest you pause the video at this point and go ahead and work on that. And if you're not sure what information age is, just copy the term and paste it, and you'll be able to see exactly what the term means if you've forgotten from our classwork. Okay, that's your first assignment. The next assignment is labor trends case studies, and that's given you some case studies. So here's the trend here. Let's do it together. Scenario 1, demographics will play a large role in future employment trends. A large portion of the population reaches the retirement age. Golf courses are becoming busier. So how is that impacting the job or the labor market? Okay, so if a lot of people are retiring, it means there's going to need to be more nursing homes, right? There's going to be a need for more nurses, for medical staff. Okay, there's going to be a need for more staffing at golf courses. Okay, so what are the impacts and how does that impact the jobs in the economy based on these trends? So we did scenario number 1 together. At this point, you're going to pause the video, and I'd like you to work through the other 4 scenarios. So you're going to tell me what are the impacts, and try and think of at least 2 to 3 points for each scenario. Okay, you can pause the video here, and then you have one more assignment to do today, and that's trends that could affect you. And this is where you're going to be thinking about your own co-op placement. So what is the occupation? So what I'm going to put is I'm just going to do mine, and my occupation is WASA, distance education teacher. Okay, and I'm going to choose one of these trends, and I'm going to call it changes, technological advancements. I'm going to do that one, so I'm just going to pop that in there. Okay, the challenge is so the challenge with technological advancements and being a technology or a distance education teacher is not all communities have equal access to technology. The infrastructure just isn't there. Okay, lots of my students are not under 30, and there may be some gaps in technological learning. So as a teacher, I need to make sure I give training for those who need it. Okay, another challenge around technological advancements is students' abilities around using the technology. And then here, how can I prepare for change in the future? I can modify my lessons. I can visit the communities to give at the elbow support. Okay? Does this challenge or opportunity affect my interest in this job with these technological advancements? What do you think? It doesn't, for me personally, it doesn't affect my interest, but what it does affect is time. Can I get to all the communities I need to help those who need help using the new technology? And understanding that these skills are important. Do people feel like these skills are really an important part of their job? So your task is to pick the job that you're working in or that you would like to be in. Pick one of these workplace trends and describe the challenge. How can you prepare for this, and does this affect your interest in the job, yes or no, with some descriptive statements. So we are now at 9:40. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the class there. You're going to pause the video. I'm going to remind you one more time not to leave stuff to the last minute. Make sure that you reach out to me if you need help. Don't get lost and just give up. call me, reach me. What you're going to do is you're going to work on you're going to go Google Classroom to do your assignments. And if you need help, you're going to contact me through email, kbirch@nnec.on.ca, or you can also text or call 807-738-3915. So, all right, good luck with all that work. And tomorrow, this is actually the last week that we're meeting, and then starting next week is when you're going to start working on those placement hours. So you really, really need to motor through this work so you're able to get started on your work placement. So have a great day, and I'll see you in class tomorrow.